was a rather quiet and windy day, and I was feeling quite low, and my phone dinged, and I thought, ooh, somebody wants my attention. And I looked at the phone, and it was my good friend Al, and he said, let's do a podcast soon. And I said, that would be fantastic. But I said, but Al, the problem is, my love for Who has faded somewhat because of the recent stuff. What can I do to reinvigorate this love? And Al, my friend, he came back to me very promptly with a series of suggestions for episode topics. And I thought, yes, my friend. I was like, I don't know what Paul is doing. If you're only listening to this, you need to go and watch it on YouTube. And Al produced from the ether a number of good topic ideas. And we said, yes, let's do it. And I texted Paul and I said, we're doing this. And here we are. Good evening, sirs.
Good evening. I was just enjoying myself watching Paul go 100% vision on
through the motions.
Yeah,
I was acting it out through the medium of mime,
interpretive dance.
Yeah, lyrical dance,
or a load of arse, depending on how you're looking at it.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting when you asked that question, Geoff, because I feel a lot of people are in that same boat at the moment. I think it feels a little bit like
jaded.
I can't really give you my personal opinion, but I think there's a level of uncertainty there's never been before.
Yeah.
And all over the place, not just who's coming next, because some people firmly believe that's already been decided. Some people firmly believe
the opposite.
Not been decided. Some people seem to think certain people are coming back, certain people are going forwards. That if the tabloids are to be believed, there's a desperate lack of anyone to fill the particular role.
Yes.
Poison chalice.
That's
I read
today.
It.
Yeah, poison chalice. Yeah,
poison chalice has what's going. So yeah, I get that uncertainty, but I think, which is why I sort of came back with my suggestions, because I think it is easy to get disenchanted. I think it very much.
Yeah.
We are all corks, and we bob along, sometimes up, sometimes down. But I guess you always just anchor yourself, which is why I sort of suggested what I did. You kind of anchor yourself to the things you did like and that you do love, and
remember those, and they drive you onwards. You can hopefully rediscover that joy that you had for your favourite thing.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, Al. There is a lot of uncertainty at the moment. I think, everybody knows there's a Christmas special coming, but nobody knows who's in it, what's going on, what's happening after it, when there's going to be anything more. And it's a real period of uncertainty. And I think, it's only a TV show, but it's something that, many people love. But obviously we've got a whole load of other stuff going on in the world as well, which probably, is not helping things. And, you sort of put your attentions on other stuff to, that try and, focus on the good, and the good is not good, at the moment. But it's funny because, there's new audios coming out from Boo Finish, and, there'll be new figures this year and new comics, and, there is lots of stuff coming out, but that overall feeling of bare.
I think it's the direction thing, and even though the Christmas special is coming, there's potentially nothing coming after that. So it's a year-long wait for essentially something that might or might not right the ship isn't the right word, and there wouldn't be for me to use that. But I think there's
to show us the way forward to set up in whatever direction.
Is it just a way to leave it open?
Yeah.
And kind of focus, and that, or is it going to be something that we all don't know?
We all don't know. It's almost like the 90s all over again.
Yeah,
we don't even have a Christmas special to look forward to then.
But I will say, and Paul, I think you touched on that there. Change is good. Change is good for you. So whatever happens, we do know it's going to be a pretty seismic change in one way or another. And that is not necessarily a bad thing.
Absolutely, 100%.
Sometimes you have to have not what you want, but what you didn't realise you needed to make things be able to move on.
Oh, this is getting very philosophical, isn't it? Hey?
Well,
We're tackling weighty subjects here.
It is, you see. That was really why I sort of threw it out there, because I think there's a lot of people. And it's funny, even I don't know what your demographic of the people you chat to all the time, but the demographic that I'm in, there's some people that really are all over the place with their opinions and ideas, and they're hearing things, they're not hearing things, and then you go on YouTube and you get people are saying, it's 100% going to be like this, and it's like, that's 100% bollocks, because
it's 100% wish fulfillment.
Yeah, I keep getting YouTube notifications from one channel in particular, and every other day, this doctor's returning, now these doctors are returning, and this is going to happen, and this, and AI for this doctor, and and sort of thinking.
The BBC the other day saying, "I've heard this. This would be good. We could do figures," but you could almost hear them laughing in the reply they said. It basically said, "When we know, we'll let you know."
Yeah.
But between the lines, they were just sort of like,
foolish humans.
So one of Al came up with a number of topics of discussion.
Yeah, basically powders with content for the next 6 months, which is all brilliant.
Which is great, because Paul and I have been saying, what have we got to
scratching
talk
our
about?
Collective heads.
And there is a lot to talk about, but it's sort of reigniting things a little bit. So we put out a couple of questions across the socials earlier this week, and we'd like to say thank you for the fantastic response. Paul and I have been lamenting lately that we put things out, we don't often get anything back. Engagement wise, and not even just saying, this was good, I enjoyed it, but putting out a question and not getting anything back. So we were quite quite overwhelmed really by this, weren't we?
We were pleasantly surprised. Yeah, it was good.
It was great,
really, really
and
good.
We had
thank everyone for that.
And also, we'll say through Katie Gangle, who does 13th Doctor voices, we picked up a new follower over on Blue Sky who
checked out the first part of Paul's recent audio drama, he was then scrabbling around looking for his socks. Do you know why he was looking for his socks? Because it knocked his socks off.
Oh, very good. Hey, that's worthy of the late Morecambe and Wise, that is. You really need your own 70s Saturday night variety show, Geoff.
Yeah, and a fez, yeah. So our first question that we put out was, discuss the personality of your doctor.
Yeah.
What drew you to your favourite? And also, what do you like about their costume? Because, you know, the more often than not, the doctor and their costume is, it's one and the same, isn't it? The costumes don't often wildly change, if at all, with the doctor. So, we've had a great response on this, and we'll come to some of that. But Al, as the originator,
the instigator,
the instigator, and our special guest, why don't we kick it off and pass this over to you?
Well, I think nobody will be surprised that. Well, that was part of the reason for asking the question. Sorry, I'm going off at a tangent as usual, which is. In true politician style, I'm not answering the question.
And also, if anyone listening to us is shocked that we're going off on tangents.
So I was about to say, nobody would be surprised that mine is Tom Baker, but the sort of ancillary question that popped into my head at the time that I was putting the questions together for you was, is that because that's the doctor I grew up with? And therefore it's nearest and dearest to my heart? Do I have an emotional attachment over and above everything else? But then I know you guys, and especially you, Geoff, are extremely fond of the 13th Doctor, and that is definitely not the Doctor that you grew up with. So
unless he was born only
what
6
you
years
don't
ago.
know is I'm only 6.
Yeah. But I need this.
Yeah, that was the second question that we put out. Is exactly like you just said, Al. Is your favourite Doctor the one you grew up with, or not? And what happened there, and what kind of led to that.
Well, what's strange is, I don't know if this has happened to you guys. I would be unsurprised if it's not, Paul. I find myself, as I've gone on, being less singular in the opinion of which Doctor I particularly like. As in, I really do like Tom Baker, but there is no doubt about it in my head that some of the, I love watching John Pertwee. I really do.
Who I thought was going to be the one you chose. Do you choose, actually?
Yeah, and I really like David Tennant. I think he was, I think, as close as you can get to Tom Baker in many ways. He had a certain alienness and just a way of dealing with things that was. Somebody said it the other day. They just said David Tennant was fun, and I processed that for a minute, and I thought, you're not actually wrong. David Tennant's approach was very much like Tom Baker's. They almost don't take it too seriously, and they always approach everything in a very positive way. And then on the back of that, I was going to say Chris Eccleston also is very near and dear to my heart. And I don't know if anybody's listened to the most recent Big Finish audio. But my God, they are really funny. Good. That dynamic between Camille Kaduri and Billy Piper and Christopher Eccleston, when they must have been wetting themselves the script, because they are funny as hell. They really are.
But also they've been quite scary as well.
They've been very. I would agree. I think that's true. They have been a little. Certainly, the last one was a bit. I found that one a bit cloudy. Have you guys heard that?
No, I haven't heard that one yet. We've done the first three, haven't we?
The last days of the Powell estate, I thought was quite.
That was phenomenal. I thought.
Yeah, that was really good.
That was
and the thing that came and put its hand on your shoulder, but the dialogue of like Jackie Tyler being pushed through a little hatch in the wall, and the Doctor kind of going, "Is she going to fit?" It's kind of, it's just all, it's just fun, and I think again, it's that when something occurs to you, you tend to analyze it for a bit, and I just thought, Tom Baker was fun. He would come in and offer jelly babies instead of punching somebody in the face, and David Tennant would appear on something and he'd go, "Oh, a pork chop! Everybody loves a pork." It's that whole kind of slightly
off the wall, unexpected,
just a little bit tangential approach to what most normal people might approach things with, and I think there's an element of that really draws me to their particular characters. Definitely.
Very good.
I think that's an interesting point, Al. I and we've said this before, Paul. I don't dislike any Doctor, and I think there are people out there, and this is completely up to them, but they like a Doctor sort of more so than any others, or any the thing as a whole. And I think that's absolutely fine. It's a show very much unlike any other. In that you've got this, obviously a long history and a changing lead every so often, and a changing kind of vibe to the Doctor at a time. So I'm not surprised in some ways that some people might like X Doctor, but not Y and Z, for example. I think for me, and I've said this before, I sort of remember watching Sylvester McCoy, when he was on, and he's one that I probably go back to least these days, I think.
Interesting.
And like you, Al, I particularly like Pertwee. I really enjoy his stuff, and I like Tom Baker. And when I watched the first Doctor stuff a while ago, the sort of consensus of him is that he's a grumpy old bugger, and there is an element of that. But I think I texted you, Paul. It was ages ago, but I said this is really good fun. And
when you watched season 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
On Blu-ray, you were quite surprised by how fun the first Doctor was. Yeah,
and he was great. So that's sort of what I'm saying. I don't dislike any of them. And I said this actually last week, I think, Paul. When Tennant turned up, I thought he was brilliant. That first bit where he walks out of the TARDIS Christmas Invasion, takes the staff off the Sycorax, breaks it on his knee, and he goes, "You can't get the staff." I mean, it was such an awful gag, but it was brilliant, and you're right, Al, he had a, fun, lively approach to him, and but also slightly darker, side, a bit like, Tom. And I really did love 10 for, a long time. I enjoyed 11, and I particularly liked 12 as well, but still, 10 was kind of my Doctor. And then, as what will come as no surprise to anyone, Jodie turned up, and I was just like, oh my God, this is everything I was looking for. She took, for me, everything. I always sort of picture it as a slider, humour, bravery, intelligence, kindness, all this sort of stuff. And she just, pushed it all up. And the Doctors have normally got things at slightly different levels, and it only took like 2 episodes with her, and I was just like, oh wow, she's the one. Yeah, and I was like, Tennant who, but I, still loved his Doctor, and I, and I've said this before, I felt that coming back as the 14th kind of undermined and undid a lot of it for me. But also I really like Sixie as well. I thought he was great on screen, but he's had a wonderful life on audio as well, and a real chance to shine. So I do have, I love them all. And I have, some that I would return to more. But yeah, definitely 13, is my favourite. So none of them were the one I grew up with, interestingly.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So was McCoy the one you grew up with, or?
Yeah, I remember seeing him and watching Silver Nemesis.
Very young.
I have quite vivid memories of Silver Nemesis and stuff. And he was good. And I'm sure I saw other stuff as well. But yeah, I was only really out of nappies back then.
I mean, I do agree with you. I don't think his first season was good at all. It was too comedic, and I remember struggling with it. And then by the time you hit Silver, by the time you hit that the anniversary year, wasn't it? You had the Remembrance. You got the Fenric, you've got Battlefield, you got some fabulous stories in there. But like people like the Happiness Patrol, and I fucking hate.
Do you?
I quite enjoyed it. You see, I think
it.
I think it's very ambitious, but I think it doesn't, like, it is being studio bound. I find it.
I think. I mean, we did a special on the Happiness Patrol, didn't we, Geoff? We sort of looked at it in a bit more detail, and I think one of the things I said there is I love the studio, the confines of the studio, limited sets. It's all in the lighting and it's all in the atmosphere, and there is a kind of almost artificiality about it, but everything in a way is kind of heightened. And I think it's a positive way. So when Doctor Who becomes what we might call theatrical, I think it either goes one of two ways. I think it either becomes a bit like the Happiness Patrol, or it goes a bit more like the Horns of Nymon, that kind of thing. So it either becomes pantomime or almost kind of Proustian theatre.
It's really interesting to say that, because that's exactly the way I think of it. Is almost theatrical, like a one-room play where you're only in that central square.
Yeah.
That's a cool observation. That's exactly the way I see it.
Yeah,
sorry, go on.
That's quite good.
So, Paul,
thank you. Yeah, cheers.
Paul, I know what your answer will be, but
go on. What is it? Go on. Put you on the spot now.
Well, the Fifth Doctor is probably
no. Well, the Fifth Doctor is the one I grew up with. Well, the Fourth Doctor is the one I grew up with, because he was on when I was in nappies and coming out and nappies and playing with my mates on the bike. But I think, as I've said to you before, I never really watched any of his adventures from start to finish. I'd catch fragments of episodes, maybe a whole episode, and then I wouldn't see it for weeks later, and it'd be a completely different story. So, but I always remember being captivated whenever I did see Tom Baker as a Doctor. And of course, I was reading the Target books Target novelizations, and I loved all of them. And the thing with the Target novelizations is I would read whatever was available in the library. So if they had a bunch of third, fourth, second, first Doctor adventures, I just read whatever they had and whatever was, whatever I could get my hands on. So from that perspective, I don't think I really had a favourite Doctor, not at them days. And when I was old enough to start becoming a fan, which, as Tom Baker was kind of bowing out, then Peter Davison was already kind of jump in, and I was really looking forward to it. And I loved the Fifth Doctor. I loved Peter Davison. But I was still reading Target novels. I was building my own collection, so I wasn't getting them out of the library then. I was buying them for myself, saving up my pocket money, my lunch money, and spending it on Target Doctor Who books rather than lunch. So I'd be walking at WX Smith's after school, starving, this skinny little rake off the street. Please, sir, may I have another Doctor Who book? So I think for me, it was like, I always appreciated for me, it's always about the stories more than the Doctor, because I think when you're coming at it through the Target novels, given that most of them were written by Terence Dicks, there was a style that the Doctor was always just the Doctor in a way. Yes, there was certain peculiarity, personality traits, and Terence Dicks would always introduce the Doctor on the first entrance as either the sort of silver-haired old man, or the kind of clown, or the dandy, or the tall curly-haired wide-brimmed hat, whatever it was, that sort of thing. But as soon as that was dispensed with, the character of the Doctor would shine through. And despite the kind of the sliders, the levels that you're talking about, there's a core to the character that remains true through all of them. And that's really what I look for in any Doctor, is that's kind of my gauge as to how far the Doctor are they really. That's, I think, but even that's just a secondary thing, really. It's just, they're the Doctor. I don't do this, I don't refer to them, I might refer to them as like, the Fifth Doctor, or their actors' names or whatever, but I won't call them like 15 or 12 or 2, or I think that's just weird, frankly. But I think that's the thing born out of Twitter's word limit, but it seems to become the norm now. So, but anyway, Peter Davison isn't, the Fifth Doctor isn't my favourite Doctor. I genuinely, honestly, I know it's going to make me sound like a bit of a tosser, but I really don't have a favourite Doctor. I genuinely just love Doctor Who for that character and who they are and what they stand for, and like you said, how they react in a room. Tom Baker was a master of it, but each one kind of added their own little quirks which others kind of picked up on, and I don't think there's any that I haven't enjoyed, really. I love all of them.
Bad Doctor, you might have a less than average story perhaps, but the Doctor is always good in it.
Exactly. It's for me, it's always on the story, and if also, the Doctor at the centre of that story is true to what I think of as Doctor-like qualities, then I'm there. I'm with it.
And also, you're right. The Doctor, in each incarnation, it's slightly different levels of things, but it's essentially the same character. And sometimes people say, "Oh, which Doctor could you see making a story, whatever, better?" And I don't think that's really the case. The story is the story. You might enjoy something differently if your favourite Doctor's in it, but it's like you said, it's the whole thing. I like Doctor Who, and yes, I would go, more to a 13th Doctor story, but if I watched a 5th Doctor, I'm still going to enjoy it because it's Doctor Who,
No, I think that's a valid point. In fact, there's another big finish they've just done recently, and I'm struggling, and I've just listened to it, and I think you'd quite like it, Paul, because it's exactly what you're talking about. It's obviously a series, but the first one deals with something happening to the TARDIS, and basically the Doctor being ejected out, some massive time-space event, and the Doctor gets ejected out. And the first one deals with the first Doctor arriving in the Third Doctor's era, while the Third Doctor...
Oh, really?
And the second one deals with the second Doctor arriving in the sort of Tom Baker's era, and he's not around, and
it sounds fun.
Is this
it is, for the very reason that the main protagonist in the first story is the Brigadier, and
Right. Yeah.
The guy who plays the first Doctor is
Stephen Noonan.
Stephen Noonan. Yeah.
It's really
good, isn't he?
good. And the Brigadier is the one that actually weaves that exact thread that you were talking about. That he's the one that basically goes,
right.
this is exactly the same guy I met who fought the Yeti, and it's exactly the same guy who went to the other universe and encountered the Primals. And they're just the same. And it's obviously it's the same person he met in the Three Doctors, but he was on the screen. And it's actually done really well, and I really enjoyed it. And for that aspect of the first Doctor, when he gets a chance, actually being a little bit whimsical and slightly sarcastic and funny, actually comes through really well.
Yeah, that's what I was surprised when I watched season 2, and I thought, this is great. I was really enjoying it.
It's all there, isn't it? In the first Doctor's, William Hartnell's performance. You can't look at that. If you look at those three original series, almost like from straight through, you could draw a line through it and look at how the Doctor's character kind of evolves. And obviously in the early days, they're still kind of feeling things out. So he perhaps is, it's that unknown, because there's that moment in the very first story where he lifts the stone over the caveman's head and is about to sort of bring it down on him to murder him or something.
I think it doesn't help as well that he's always been pitched as a crotchety old man.
Exactly. That's
it.
The
description of the first Doctor is he's a crotchety old man, which is in some ways, I think, why Peter Capaldi, who I thought was a brilliant Doctor, the first couple of stories were much more difficult to watch, because that interpretation of the Doctor not necessarily being as nice as we've always known him is actually quite difficult. And I think you're right. The first Doctor's not actually like that. He's actually very compassionate.
That's it. Yeah, they push
amazingly, absolutely inquisitive. That's the
100%. Yeah. That's exactly it. And you can see all the qualities from all the subsequent Doctors in those first 3 seasons. William Hartnell runs the gamut of all of them. He can be dark, he can be quirky, he can be funny, he can be light, he can dance around, sing a song, be sarcastic, just create really terrible one-line jokes as well. Those sort of things. It's all there. And I kind of wonder, Patrick Troughton's second Doctor, again, so nuanced. You look on the surface and you think, well, maybe Patrick Troughton is enhancing the comedy a lot more, but he's taking what's already there, expanding it, evolving it, moving it on, using that to maybe identify his Doctor, or at least that's what the writers latch onto. But there's some wonderful small moments, like that moment in Tomb of the Cybermen where he and Victoria, he sits to one side of Victoria and they have this lovely little conversation about family and what it means to them. And then when you look at that and compare it to the 13th Doctor talking to Ryan in the steps of the TARDIS, or Yaz, and when they talk about family and what they mean to each other in their relationship in the TARDIS and how they've changed, it's that sort of thing. You've got the third Doctor talking to Joe Grant in The Time Monster about the Daisy's Daisy. You've got the fourth Doctor and Sarah Jane. At the end of in loads of stories really, but at the end of The Hand of Fear, when it's just a two-hander for like 10, 12 minutes or so of that episode, it's wonderful stuff. And it continues throughout all these things.
Yeah, it's one of the things with modern Who, isn't it? That thing of the tragedy of the ninth Doctor onwards, where he's lost his home and therefore he's lost his anchor in the universe. Kind of gets a bit overshadowed by, you got to have a companion or you're going to go nuts.
And then it becomes about the Doctor and the companion's growing relationship, isn't it?
About, flying up the Doctor's own arse and kind of overworking it. But the tragedy of, we have him all the way through the classic series as the Time Lord from Gallifrey. Eventually, obviously, and he's on the run initially. Then he kind of rationalizes that when he gets the third incarnation. Then he's a bit kind of aloof in his fourth incarnation, and then Gallifrey kind of does him bad, but kind of accepts him, and he gets a chance to be president again. But he kind of says, "No, it's not for me." And then you get that whole kind of thing of like, and then all of a sudden, you get to the Ninth Doctor and his home's gone, and he's this character lost, and the only thing he has in the entire universe is just that drive to just do good wherever he turns up.
I do love the Ninth Doctor. I think one of the things that surprised me mostly, I think you alluded to it before, both you guys actually, is that how much fun the Ninth Doctor is and can be, and it's like because I think I remember the day when it was announced that Christopher Eccleston was going to be playing the Doctor, and part of me was just incredulous that Christopher Eccleston would ever do this. I think I wasn't alone in that, right? I was reading newspapers which kind of reflected what I was kind of thinking. It was like, here's a guy who's literally is recognised as one of the very best, and in some ways most, I don't think serious is the word, but most intense actors of his generation, almost like a young Patrick Stewart in a way, how he takes a role and just pours himself into this and becomes that and lives it and feels it, and you see it in his face. I'm thinking, wow, I mean, if he can bring that to Doctor Who, what is it going to what's it going to look like? But I never thought that we'd see him goofing around, massive grin on his face, coming out with bad one-liners. You know what I mean? All those things that I'd say Doctorish, they're all there. And it's joyous. It really is. And yes, we get the survivor's guilt, but we get that package as well, which, is written into the stories actually by that relationship with Rose and her family, that he becomes part of that. And there is a growing relationship between them. And countered with that is the darkness that seems to follow him. I do like that.
No, you're right. It's fair. His sort of comedy chops are. I mean, it's funny. I agree, because previous to that, I only remember ever seeing him in Our Friends from the North.
Yeah.
And he was quite sort of serious. And then he obviously that one skit in League of Gentlemen, which was sort of quite funny. But yeah, I'd have liked to have seen him get another year.
Yeah, well, as we can see from the Big Finish audios,
he's done a bunch of the Big Finish audios, and I've really enjoyed them. But you can tell that getting back with Billy Piper and that original crew, the dynamic is just
it's been really good on them. Yeah, but I'd just like to hop over to Blue Sky.
Yes.
I was going to squeeze this one in just a moment ago because it would have been a really good lead in from what you were saying, Paul. So our friend Lucy McCall says, my favourite Doctor was and is the Fifth Doctor. I don't think that a person's Doctor is necessarily the one they grew up with, but mine is. She says, I just felt comfortable with him and reassured by him. And now I'm older, I like the psyche parts of his character and the way he is ahead of the others, often quietly. So thank you.
Can I interject there? Because having just seen Warriors of the Deep at the BFI, I have to say I completely agree with everything she said. But following Tom Baker, in hindsight, thinking about it, must have been a terrifying thought. But his portrayal is really subtle, and it was really interesting seeing it on the big screen with new effects, and that kind of did sort of help, but it didn't detract from his performance and that subtle understatement and kind of his relationship with his companions and some of his little facial movements were just priceless.
They're good. I agree.
Supreme Human says 13 and Jodie seem to be twins separated at birth. I like her outlook on life as both herself and the Doctor. The costume is weird and wacky and fits like an ill-fitting glove. Didn't really grow up with a particular Doctor.
Al's shaking his head.
And Jodie is most definitely my favourite of all the actors who played the role.
It's like a bad cosplay. That's what it is.
Ignoring people. Ignoring. I don't know where we found him from.
No. Ian Banks says, after a really hard think about it, my Doctor might be, so he's still not sure, Ian, it might be John Pertwee. He resolutely stands up for what is right, speaks his mind, but is also in touch with his emotions and understands how others are feeling. He's also one of the few incarnations that made me feel safe. Other Doctors are just as competent and brave, but I rarely felt he would let things be as bad as they could get, as though he personally stood before chaos and tyranny and stopped it in its tracks. That's very interesting. The comment about being made to feel safe, a bit like Lucy said.
Friends, and that I they would completely agree. I've got one friend in particular who grew up and in not a perfect family society, and that's exactly what he said to me in the past. The one thing that made me feel safe as a child was 5 o'clock at tea time on a Saturday. So 100%.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it. Someone had commented very. Where was it? Was it on? Just bear with me a second. Maybe it was here on Blue Sky. Someone
all under one of his
all these comments are cool. Yeah,
wanted to say that there's no bloody doctor that I find particularly exciting.
I think they're all great, and I love them all, you know what I mean? It's got my bot farm spamming out all this stuff.
There's a where was it? Hang on. Supreme Human said, if I was a companion, there was only one doctor I would travel with, and no, I would come back with in one piece. It's not 12.
I saw that one. That's quite good.
Yeah. Paul, would you like to read a few out, or do you want to play some of the audios? We've had a few speak pipes.
Yeah, let's sent in. I'll tell you what, it's quite interesting. We've got one from
David Pierce. He said it was his first voice note he sent in.
There we go. This is David. You took the words right out of my mouth.
My favourite Doctor is John Pertwee, the third Doctor. He was the one I grew up with, but I think what sets him apart is his flamboyance, both in terms of his costume, in terms of his behaviour, and also the way that he stands up to authority. He doesn't suffer fools gladly. He doesn't take to being ordered around by petty diplomats. And the Brigadier really has to prove himself to the Doctor, and of course vice versa. But I think what really set him apart was his relationship with Jo Grant, that mentoring, that ability to find depths that Jo herself never knew she had. And of course, that all ended with one of the most fantastic departures of any companion. So, John Pertwee, absolutely once seen, never forgotten, and for me, never matched.
Well, thank you
for that, David.
I
wouldn't argue with a single word of that. I think that's spot on.
That was absolutely spot on. And it's funny how people observe things, and that observation about him being the anti-establishment. You know, you could put the Third Doctor in any gentleman's smoking club. Fine, and he would fit in perfectly.
Yeah.
But he absolutely did not like bureaucracy. It's a very good observation.
That's it, isn't it? And yet there's the irony that he was working for a government organisation.
Yes. Yeah.
Or a pan-governmental organisation. You know, he was...
Which didn't really sit well with him.
No, that's it. It served his ends, I think. It gave him a base of operations whilst he was stranded, I guess.
I'll just say as well, it's almost like we planned these. You know, Ian just said those exactly same thoughts.
Has he?
As David then said. But until then, I hadn't listened to David's voice note. Had you already listened to it, Paul?
I did a quick listen. You know, I filter just to make sure we're not surprised by strange.
Not going to play you a bunch of twats.
I hate your podcast and everything it stands for. You never know, do you? You know?
No, you probably should check them. I don't, because I like to hear it.
Yeah, you just send them in, mate. You're just you have no filter.
Yeah.
Oh dear! What was one we got? If you're going to talk about rumours, talk about rumours.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Actually, someone did actually post that, didn't they?
They did. Yeah. Spill
that was fun.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting there, actually, and maybe this leads into the thing about costumes, because the flamboyance of John Pertwee is really something, isn't it? And what I like about Pertwee's costume, if you're going to put it that way, is how is, I think, as you said, Joe, how it changes. So it's a different color jacket, it's a different shirt, it's a different cloak, from story to story. And it's not really until you kind of get into the Fifth Doctor where it became a solid costume, worn episode to episode. And I think the only one who really changed possibly was Tegan throughout the whole 3 years she did it. And Nissa had a different outfit, in a few stories before she left in season
one
2.
Of my most hated. Do
you know, the thing that always gets me, I can kind of take the Fifth Doctor wearing a cricket outfit, and I kind of like it, but the whole illusion kind of falls apart with Turlough. Because why would Turlough, unless there's something intrinsically wrong with him and how he views the world and his place within it, why would he always choose to wear a filthy, scraggly, like public school, whatever it is, public school, isn't it? Public school uniform that looks like it's been dragged through a hedge backwards. It's just, and the tie's always up here. Why would you even bother wearing a tie every day if it's going to be over there? Unless you're 14 years old and you want to make a cool statement to your mates in class.
See,
but
all of that's also quite interesting, because Pertwee does change, but it's still
still recognisably.
Yeah,
same with Tom Baker as well, isn't it?
It's still, that's
silhouette,
it. Yeah.
But Adric's the same. Adric doesn't get out of this.
No, there's the yellow tunic.
Yeah.
And I know the reason behind the scenes for it is because John Pertwee felt very strongly that they should have a costume, almost like a superhero costume, where they're easily identified, whether it's in the press, actually in the show itself, or out at events, exhibitions, and press calls and what have you. That they're always recognisably who they are, So, and I think he always kind of insisted that the Doctor would always appear in costume, which I think might have started with John Pertwee or Tom Baker.
I wonder if also it was to try and alienate himself from his sort of comedy background, because he was essentially, up until Doctor Who, known as a sort of
John Pertwee.
John Pertwee's known as a stalwart comedy scene, wasn't he?
Totally,
always playing like soldiers and sort of.
Round the horn,
something
like that, wasn't it? But he'd always do silly voices,
stuff as well.
Yeah, a couple of carry-on movies and things like that, and yet he ends up playing one of the most almost serious-minded, still, good for a few laughs and a few jokes and have you, but one of the most serious-minded of all the Doctors in a way.
He is, but every time somebody got him in a neck brace or a nesting tentacle,
you get
he would do the old...
the mummery would kick in. Yeah,
his face.
So true. Yeah,
I like that.
Brilliant for that.
I like that the Doctor has, it's essentially a costume, but there's different sort of variations on it. I was thinking about this recently. Like, I when I buy a figure for something, for example, I like someone in a costume. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be like a superhero costume. It's something,
some kind of fetish,
distinct. Not the gimp suits, but something.
Keep those for special occasions.
Something distinctive. So, for example, I've been playing the new Resident Evil game. Superb. Great characters in it, but they just wear jeans and a leather jacket. It's pretty boring, and I think, as much as I love the Ninth Doctor as well, his costume is deliberately, I understand,
bomber jacket and jeans.
And it fits him, but it's the least kind of, sort of.
It's the least flamboyant. It's a world away from the Edwardian.
I think that was deliberate. Eccleston
it was
from the north. He wanted to make he wanted to show kids that the Doctor could be working class.
Yeah. And it works totally.
Absolutely.
I remember when they put the first picture of Tennant on the roof with Billy, when he was, first revealed in his costume. I think I saw it in the paper or something, and I thought, fucking hell, he looks cool. And I love that long coat, the suit.
Cool.
It was a really good, like you say, our silhouette. He looked really good. And then it was the same with Jodie when they revealed that shot of her on the, hillside. I thought, yeah, that looks great. I think I like a long coat,
Yeah, and it's funny. I think I see a lot of cosplayers do this, and it's a weird subtlety between good costume design doesn't look like a costume. It looks like their everyday clothes or clothes that character would wear. Cosplay, people tend to, a lot of the time, they go for a nice clean jacket and it's perfectly, or the weighting of the material and everything. It all makes a difference. And I do love a bit of cosplay, I will say, but
Indeed.
But I agree with you. Jodie's costume, much as I malign it, I think, it was designed with a number of elements in mind. Some not wildly subtle, I will be honest, but you can't mistake that silhouette. I think a bit of variation in her sort of might have helped. But then I think about the Fifth Doctor and the Sixth Doctor. I mean, the Sixth Doctor's costume is horrible.
And out of all the modern ones, Tennant had, different tie, didn't he? But, he was brown, blue, brown, blue.
Suit, the blue suit.
Yeah.
But a big thing about the blue suit when it came out.
It's quite important, I think, that they do have that sort of, identifiable look, because Capaldi kind of didn't, I think. He had the initial black jacket with the red.
Yeah,
it changed so much, and
he'd sometimes have a hoodie, wouldn't he? Just
and it did work for his version, but it was also like he's just wearing a hoodie. It's just there's nothing. Nothing.
Well, he evolved into the frock coat look.
Yes,
he did.
Which looked really good because
I think his there's a behind the scenes shot of him wearing one of John Pertwee's actual jackets. And I think that was who he really liked. And I think he wanted, the red velvet on the inside of the jacket that he wore in season 1. It's all sort of nods to the past. But I agree with you. I think as that evolved, it became. But again, it was this silhouette. He said, you could put all the Doctors in. I guess it's just because you get to know them. But
I think so. Yeah. And it's interesting as well that Tom, the Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker's costume, obviously that evolved. He was there the longest, right? Was that like 8 years or something?
Yeah.
And for me, what I love is the burgundy costume, the big overcoat, the big burgundy scarf in season 18. And again, that's one. Once that's established, that doesn't change much. I think he changes from shoes to boots on occasion from stories.
That one's really interesting because you can tell he thought it was too costumey because they gave him a particular style of hat and they gave him all the waistcoat and the burgundy jacket and then the sort of +4s and the socks and the shoes. Tom Baker basically ditches that hat very quickly. He never wears it again. Waistcoat, all the complicated stuff is ditched. It ends up as the waistcoat, the shirt, the long burgundy jacket, which is lovely. But it is versus what he had previously. I just think.
But it's almost like that. It kind of, I don't know if it sort of reflects and reinforces the mood and the tone in those stories, because I think it's quite well known that Tom Baker wasn't very happy. In that season, he obviously made the decision to leave. There was all kinds of things going on with Lana Ward and their marriage or whatever. Didn't particularly get on with John Nathan Turner. All these young people come in. Everything's changing about the show. The stories are kind of wildly different to what he's kind of been doing. And he's not in charge anymore. That big personality who maybe shouted out at scripts and chewed the other actors from time to time or storm out rehearsals and nip down the pub, just couldn't be that person anymore, and it was on the turning of the 70s into the 80s as well, and all of that kind of adds to this brooding presence on screen, and this is where I starting to watch Doctor Who, so that silhouette that he had in those stories helped draw me into that, and that mood and that tone, and Tom Baker sort of just dominating the screen, head down, moving to and fro, coming out with all kinds of portentous stuff. I just lapped it up. I thought, this is, to me at a young age, it looked like a doctor who was fierce, who was someone who the cosmos took notice of. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing that's kind of come along in the series.
I agree. I mean, I love that final season. It did. The costume though was heralded in certainly under the John Nathan Turner.
Yeah, it's when we saw the question marks on the shirt collar, wasn't it? I think they first appeared there.
But yeah, that final season's fabulous, and I agree with you. There's a state of decay, and that whole tone. I agree, is just brilliant. He's very serious in almost every story. Warrior's Gate, it's all kind of leading up to
this catastrophe, cosmic catastrophe. Yeah, uncontrolled entropy.
Just going to read a Blue Sky that we have from Jason M, which will tie in nicely to this. My first doctor was Peter Davison, but then my PBS, presumably in America, cycled back to Tom Baker in February '85, and that cemented my fandom forever. Tom's mid-sentence mood swings, prop comedy, and dialogue in Robots and Ark in Space have kept me a fan for 41 years now.
Wow!
Thank you, Jason.
I agree. It's one of the problems I have with the Big Finish Tom Bakers, and I love them because he is my favorite doctor, and unashamedly. But Tom Baker in his early seasons is quite snippy and a bit kind of, he'll shout somebody down and tell them that they're stupid, and that I love that versus the sort of slightly more benevolent, friendly grandpa way he tends to play it. Now it's a bit arch, I find.
Yeah,
but I still love it. I can't complain. I love it. I love it all.
Love it all. It's more Tom.
Well, let me flip this around here. So Bafflegabs says, I watched the last Tom Baker season, but the moment he regenerated into Davison, it made me a lifelong fan. 5 is my doctor by age. 12 or 13, why not both? My doctors by choice. With 5, I find the fallibility very appealing. He's not a superhero. 13, her enthusiasm / secret dark side. And 12, he's just perfect. So thank you for that. Paul, are you okay for time? Because we've got quite a few more to read.
Well, so should we do the Facebook from
let's do that.
Eleanor Jodie Olszewski. Do you want to read that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let me bring that up. So maybe we'll do this as a 2-parter.
Because this is a brilliant one, actually. Okay. It's very, very good.
All right, so I'm going to. This is a really long one from Eleanor, so I'm going to kind of paraphrase slightly.
Go.
So, the 13th Doctor is very much my Doctor. It wasn't always the case. Like so many Whovians of my generation, I grew up with Tom Baker's Doctor. Although I'm very fond of all of them, as my first Doctor, Tom always has been and always will be special to me. When the show came back from the dead, I enjoyed it a lot. All the Doctors were great, but I think that somewhere inside I had always been hoping that one day we'd see a woman cast as the Doctor. After Capaldi announced his departure, the usual speculation went on, and I wasn't very active in those days, but after Jodie was revealed as the new Doctor, my excitement levels went through the roof. I truly didn't realise just why at the time, although I did later. After the excitement of her first appearance, but in Twice Upon a Time, there was another long wait for her debut. By the end of her first scene, I was head over heels, and that feeling never went away. She was everything I've loved in all the Doctors, but I got some serious Tom Baker / robot vibes from the woman who fell to earth. In many ways, I think that night recaptured the thrills a 9-year-old me probably felt watching Tom back in the 70s. I think it was sometime during Series 12 that I realised she was my Doctor. Don't know if I felt it was disloyal to Tom in some way to feel like this, but of course it's not. I do love all the Doctors. And they're all just extra special to me. And without Tom, I may never have become a long-term fan or discovered Jodie. so many years later. What is it about 13 that makes her so special to me? She's helped me to change my life in the most amazing ways. She helped me to understand myself so much better and to accept myself as I am. Being gender and neurodiverse, I developed a really deep connection to 13. Scenes like the purple sofa one in Arachnids in the UK, her difficulty in finding the right thing to say to Graham at the end of Can You Hear Me, or just being driven crazy by a blinking light on Carvanista's ship whilst trying to give him a dressing down resonate so much with me. I've learned to embrace my weirdness, and I'm so grateful. Good-hearted weirdos of the world unite. Yeah. Like all dedicated 13 fans, I've experienced the dark side of the fandom, or the alleged fandom, perhaps. Let's not dwell too long on that, but I wanted to say, I haven't read this.
Oh, yeah, me neither, actually. I'm just reading it along with you.
But I wanted to say thank you, guys, for something you said to Chris Chibnall in your interview with him. Something about speaking to those people who are not the loudest voices on the internet. So true. We may not be seen out there too often, but we are there, and we love 13 very deeply, just like me.
Oh wow! Yeah,
I think that's fabulous. And I think
genuinely, it's so.
One of the strong takeaways.
It's how the Doctor speaks to you. You know what you see and what you resonate, how you relate to the Doctor, how you see yourself in the Doctor, and then see the Doctor being a hero. And like you said, Geoff, not by waving guns around, not by shooting laser beams out their eyes. Although I love that, to be fair. I was shocked to shoot laser beams out of my eyes, but cracking a joke, opening a bag of sweets or something, all of those unexpected off the wall stuff. And like Eleanor said, trying to give someone a dressing down whilst being completely focused on the blinking light, that it just has to be dealt with. Yeah. I love all of that stuff, and thank you for your kind words for our podcast.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't expecting to read that. That's really lovely. But yeah, I think I love that she discovered the show there through Tom, but it's evolved and it's changed, but not abandoning the past, I think that's probably happened to a number of people. But like you say, Paul, we probably all see bits of ourselves in the Doctor, and particularly our favourite Doctor, and I think. The Doctor essentially is a kind person who wants to do good and help people, and I think that's it's a really good kind of way to live your life, really.
I think that's
even
true.
Get it wrong sometimes.
I think I've forgotten what I was going to say. There was a good point. It was a good point that she yes, that was it. That quite often I think there's a very vocal minority, and it's always the case, a very vocal minority who hate on everything for no good reason, versus the quiet majority that really get something extremely pleasurable from it, and it affects them on a very personal level, like that discussion.
Yeah,
I think.
It happened. It's true. I mean, I remember. When Jodie was on air, spending a huge amount of time sort of, posting about loving it on Twitter or wherever, and then getting a load of shit from people, and, but pushing back quite hard on it, and sort of, weirdly feeling like, I love this so much, I'm not going to let someone take this away from me. If they don't like it, that's fine. You don't need to be a dickhead about it. And I think... I haven't listened back to it in a long time, Paul, but I think we did say something to Chris, didn't we? That, the fans are out there. And,
exactly, and we were engaged with them every day online, weren't we?
And we still are to an extent. This group became, defensive and in many cases quiet for fear of the negative side of the fandom. But they were there, and they, were very, passionate and dedicated, but kind of hid away. And I feel that's not fair, to be like that. But you're right, Al. It's just everywhere. Again, I've seen it even this week, just in Resident Evil stuff online. Because my feed's getting all that at the minute. you know, and there's people like, oh, if you like the new game, you're not a proper fan, and you know, this awful sort of attitude
Despite the
to
fact
it.
you played every game since it was, you know, since the first
Yeah,
iteration,
you
probably, you know.
or when it was on a bloody PS1
Yeah,
disc. You
Before
know.
that guy was probably even born.
I mean, it's human nature. We're all different. We all get different things from things, and
Yeah. I think
tolerance
it's just
is
the way you go. Yeah, that's it. You know, it's you may think that, you know, the new Resident Evil is not a patch on the others, but that's not a fact. It's your fact. But if someone else enjoys it, they're not in the wrong. And you know, the 13 fans had a lot of, you know, grief for a long time. But interestingly, doesn't really happen anymore.
No,
You know.
that's it, isn't it? I mean, you remember the pylon we got when we put our interview with Chris Chibnall out there, you know, and it was ridiculous to some of the stuff we got. I'm not going to go into it and repeat any of it, but there was some crazy stuff hating on us on the podcast and trying to make it personal, and you know, but you know, the flip side to that.
Sorry to interrupt, Paul. Al, you may not have seen us, but to essentially paraphrase. It all blew up because there was one or two
because
people.
Just because we didn't tell Chris Chibnall how shit these guys thought Doctor Who would become under his watch.
They were like,
we're not. We don't think that.
This is the worst interview this is the worst interview I've ever heard.
Yeah. You're going to sit down with the producer of Doctor Who and tell him his program shit? No. What universe do you think that's going to happen? Do you know what I mean? I think we emailed Chris and said, Chris, we'd really like to, you know, sit down and tell you that your show's shit.
There's so much content dedicated to somebody's opinion on something that's on. You literally can't go onto YouTube without running into somebody's opinion, and it's all catchy clickbait, like Doctor Who stinks, this is this, blah blah blah. And it's like there's a ton of stuff on Doctor Who I don't like, but there's a ton of stuff I still like.
Exactly,
Don't throw anybody under the
focus on the stuff that you do enjoy. You know,
always trying to be kind.
Yeah,
that's
never be.
Just do that. Yeah. You know, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
you know?
We all like certain things, and one of the weird things about certainly I find is I might not like something initially, but then quite often when I go back and rewatch it, I find out that on second or third watching, it actually my opinion changes.
So what you're saying
is you become so reactionary that you walk away from something with a kind of "fuck you, I'm never watching that crap."
And other people's opinion taints you, you know. But what you're telling me there, Al, is there's still chance that you'll like the 13th Doctor era the way I
don't dislike the 13th Doctor at all. I think there are some good stories. I have certain issues with it, but those are my issues, and
and you know what?
Listen, I've said it time and time and time again. Doctor Who has never looked as good as it did in the 13th Doctor era. Whatever else I have an issue with, that program looked $1 million freaking dollars,
100%,
more than any other point in its history.
Yeah, and you know, we're great
movie
friends.
Quality every week. Movie quality.
You know, you've never been, you know, rude or insulting or anything like that about, you know, the love I have for it, you know, and that's great. You know, it's you know, it's the way, you know, we should be. I don't really know how I'm going with that now, but yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, on that note, should we just listen to Katie, who sent us a couple of voice notes in?
Yes.
And then we'll wrap up. So thank you, Katie, for sending these. Let's have a listen to the wonderful Katie Ganga.
Oh, gee, it's so hard to pick my favorite. But I love how just joyous 13 is, how she loves the small things, how all the elements of life. There's a beautiful quote in her comics that says, along the lines, I'll paraphrase a bit, you know, what's the best thing about watching a movie you've watched 1 million times with someone else? And Ryan goes, seeing it through new eyes. She loves to show people the universe. She loves to see the goodness in people. She gives everybody a chance. Second chances, not so much, but she gives everybody a chance. And she's just so wonderful and bright. And she is, to quote Yaz, you're like a kid sometimes. And 13 responds, thanks. Well, only sometimes. And she's so slightly offended by that. And Jodie even mentioned, she's so excited. She's got this childlike wonder and happiness. And that's something I want to have every single day. I want to be the 13th Doctor on my worst days. But all the doctors kind of remind me of who I want to be. And I'm so grateful that she is my universe.
Oh, it's beautiful. And
that's a great point about, there's no point being grown up if you can't be childish sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny, isn't it? We all the people that are out there that love Doctor Who, I certainly, my moral compass was affected by Doctor Who. You don't get into something and watch it without it affecting how you should treat other people. So there's all good points Katie made there. I thought that was brilliant.
Let's listen to Katie's final message. Here we go.
I think everybody's doctor can change or grow, but they will always be your doctor. Chris was my doctor. He was the first doctor I saw. Love him, still love him. I adore Matt. I love Matt so much. I watched his episodes. I'm like, this is the doctor. He's so happy and engaging and just brilliant. I think everybody's like, you can grow up, you can have multiple doctors. This isn't a pick and choose. You can have multiple doctors. I fell in love with Paul. I adore Paul. Hearing him through Big Finish, God, he needs a full season. He and Joe, I'm putting it out there. Hey, BBC, Big Bad Wolf, Joe and Paul both need full seasons.
100%.
Make it happen. We'd watch it.
There you go. I didn't know it was going to end there, actually, but I fully appreciate that, Katie. Thank you. Yes, we definitely need more Eighth Doctor.
You just reminded me to mention Paul McGann, who I totally agree with that. I mean, oh my God, I would
How magical is he in that movie, honestly? I mean, the story itself might fall away, but it's just so... it's just so wonderful seeing Paul McGann playing the Doctor in that. And
absolutely brilliant in the audience as well. I mean,
and even in that skit, the Night of the Doctor, where he regenerates into young John Hurt through a mirror. It's brilliant. Katie's right. We got some great Big Finish stories out of it. And the Eighth Doctor novels are fantastic.
It goes to the...
Getting on a TV, we just want to see more of that.
It's the Matt Smith regeneration speech, isn't it? We're all the same people all through our lives, but we change constantly all through our lives as well. And I think that's a good analogy for the Doctor. They have to evolve. They have to change. And like we were saying, change is good. It's sometimes hard to deal with, but it is always in the long run.
In the long run,
the right. I live for it. I love change, but appreciate not everybody kind of feels that way about things. But
what are you saying? People who can't move on from a certain Doctor?
That's not what I'm saying at all. Everybody's different. We all appreciate. The argument for not changing is to have stability. And routine.
You've
and
got
the
to keep moving forward.
I think it was when you said, "You're standing on my 13th nerve." Geoff, that was what
fantastic. Well, it's been a lot of fun, gents. I've enjoyed talking about this.
This has been great.
This topic.
We didn't even get on to costumes. We need another one.
Well, I was just going to say, in the time we've been talking, we've had another couple of comments come in on Blue Sky, which were replies to one of the comments I read out earlier. And there's still a bit more on Twitter and YouTube. So how about we go back to Al's master list of questions and put one of them out for next week, and then we carry on this next week and a new subject as well, and do that, because this has been great fun. It's genuinely, as I think, been something I've needed for a while. This has been a really good chat.
Brilliant. Yeah. I'm glad you're feeling happier, Geoff. Yeah. That pleases me. Well done, Al, for getting Geoff back in the groove.
Yeah,
well, I know how he feels. It's easy. It's easy to feel a bit lost these days. I think it's easy to lose your anchors, and especially there's a feeling, I think, that sometimes you lose the stuff that we hold dear, be it stories, TV shows, films, whatever. So just one thing can change and we can feel a bit lost. So yeah, I think
definitely.
Yeah,
good.
That's good. Brilliant. Thank you for that.
Thank you, guys, and thank you everyone who's commented as well. We've got more to get through, so we will pick this up next week.
I enjoyed the comments. It was brilliant in fact, I'll shut up more the next time because it was brilliant.
No, but this has been good. We've been chatting and we've brought the comments in, and that's given us more to talk about and stuff. And this is what I kind of want. We hear this sort of stuff. I love hearing people's views and thoughts on who, and we can then sort of talk about it and stuff. And also the SpeakPipe stuff is great. If anyone wants to do it, www.speakpipe.com/whoc2c, and it's just a little
find
website
the link to
thing
it on our socials.
Just record a little voice note and it comes through to us. So please do have a go at that. It's good. Right, thank you everyone. Thank you, Al, and we will catch you next time on Who Corner to Corner.
See you next time. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye for now. Later.